Good evening. We'd like to wish everyone a happy Father's Day for this coming Sunday. And welcome to the Wind Turbine and Alternative Energy Committee's meeting. We have minutes we'll have to pass on because she's not here, not coming. So we have two people that will be absent. We have the planners report first, and then we have a special guest speaker, Matt Vanderbrook, who is going to be talking about the feasibility business study update, and he's the project manager from SCD.
I'll just give a brief update on a couple items. As you know, Auburn is a designated green community with the Department of Energy Resources, and as such we're eligible for competitive grants. The town has applied for 3 projects in the sum of about $248,000 to convert the town hall and Merriam building from oil to gas burning furnaces, and also apply some variable frequency drives, install variable frequency drives at the police station to help with the ventilation in the basement. And these are projects that were identified in an audit report done, I believe, in 2012. So we are awaiting announcement from DOER, and the last I heard we should hear this month. So could be exciting.
Great.
Yep, getting some good projects there.
And that's $248,000 the taxpayers won't have to pay.
Mm-hmm. That's
a
correct.
good thing.
Yeah, that's great. The other component is that on the municipal side of things, I'm going to be meeting with department heads to discuss operational energy reduction measures, and basically I'll be going to their buildings or meeting with them in their departments just to discuss ways that, you know, even just small ways that we can continue to save energy in our municipal buildings, whether it's shutting down printers at the end of the night, initiating computer shutdown policies, those types of, you know, the small things that will still add up and help us reduce our energy here.
Would you come back and share those with us?
Yeah, of course.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And the last piece, the town of Auburn, we are partnering with the towns of Millbury and Sutton to put on an energy fair in October. This will be for residents of the communities as well as small businesses. And it's in the planning stages now, but we've put together a planning group, and the group is pursuing sponsorship and vendors to you know, present their, you know, whatever they might be in the market for, as well as put together a set of speakers to just talk about ways to save energy, ways to reduce, and, you know, maybe we'll have some electric cars on display and that sort of thing. So should be a family-friendly event, and that will be October 3rd at the Millbury Junior Senior High School. Continue to provide updates on that as it takes shape.
Great. And I just have one question. The Blue Wave Solar in Oxford, did that actually happen, or?
It did. I believe they're in the construction phase now.
And how many megawatts was that? Or I heard it was 13,000 solar collectors. Is that about correct?
Honestly,
you know, details.
I'd have to look into the details. Yeah.
Maybe for the next meeting, you get some of those details.
Sure.
That was on the Krasowski's property in Oxford.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Yep, I know a portion of the farm there was designated for solar development, and the model is community solar, which instead of having, say, like a town or a business as an off-taker, a resident can go directly to them and and benefit from the solar credits. So,
Do our bylaws cover that?
do our bylaws? We do not have a solar bylaw in town. No.
So we'll be the zoning board of appeals.
Yes, I believe for a like a generator facility.
Will you be working on a bylaw in the future for
I
solar?
believe that there's a draft in the works, and our bylaws are going for a wholesale review and revision. I believe that will start this year, and it will probably take a solid year or so to get that in order. But a solar bylaw would be part of that for sure.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Eric?
No, that completes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Les Brown.
You're welcome.
And we'll go right to Matt Vanderbrook, who has been working with us for a number of years. And he has a final report, I believe. And hopefully you can come back and meet with us again if we have further questions, because I'm sure we will. We only received the report, the members of the committee, this week. So there's an awful lot there to absorb in that period of time. So.
And I would just say, you know, so we're in this business planning phase at the moment. So I guess a little background. So we finished this feasibility study over 2 years ago. And when we were ready to transition into this business planning, which is to kind of look at key aspects of the development to really, you know, focus and see if it's, you know, help the town make a decision as if it's something that they want to explore more. And so that would be looking into financing, permitting, interconnection, outreach aspects. So in 2013, after the report was done, the CEC, Mass Clean Energy Center, went kind of through a strange transition. There was a lot of pressure, I think, from the top down. There's been some controversial wind projects, to say the least, in Massachusetts. And so I think there were just some concerns about, you know, where projects stood and how projects were proceeding. And so there wasn't a lot of communication with the CEC at that time. They weren't being very responsive. And our contract lapsed, the town's contract with the CEC lapsed in that time. So we had to get it renewed, which took quite a bit of time to do as well. So with Eric's help, that's been re-engaged and restarted. So we've been working on these business planning tasks. I think the biggest part of the business planning phase is sort of the public outreach and presenting the information to people. And I think the biggest key to that is the acoustic study, which is a sort of a separate incentive that was provided to the town to have that performed. And that is still currently pending. The company that we work with, who we worked with on a number of these, we're still closing out some previous jobs with them, so we just haven't been able to get the green light to go ahead with those. And I know the committee had expressed interest in wanting that work to happen in the winter, I guess, when the most conservative assessment could happen. So I think it's important, just because this is sort of in a more residential, rural neighborhood, that the findings of that acoustic study, which not only take into account the acoustic sound produced by the turbine, but also the ambient levels of the area, will actually measure the sound for a period of about 15 days. I think that's important information that would be presented. So my thought on this is, we've pretty much done everything else except for the public outreach and the sound study. So my thought is that we would do the sound study, and then after those results and that report is published, we would have a follow-up public meeting to sort of present the findings. Would be my plan for that. And just, I don't need a decision now, but just wanted to get people's opinion on that. So I guess the other aspects.
Does the committee have any feelings on that?
Well, how about the test balloon? Wasn't that part of that?
That is part of it as well. So that would be, my other thought would, if we're having this public meeting, that we would also bring the balloon out and put that up for it's usually up for a couple hours, and that could be, the day before or the day of, just something to coincide with the meeting, so people can actually get a feel for how tall the turbine would potentially be. So I think that would be a good thing to try to throw in there as well.
So you're proposing to do this in the fall, or?
Potentially,
Right
yes.
after the leaves fall is what you're saying.
Right, yeah, potentially. Yep. Yep.
And in your report, I found, one page was quite interesting to me. I don't know if I read it correctly. If the ambient noise was 4 decibels and the wind turbine made 4 decibels
Yes.
also, somehow that seems to add up to 8. But in the report, it says it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, it's the and I'm not a sound engineer, so I don't have a great understanding. But again, that's sort of the purpose of the acoustic study, is to understand what the ambient background is going to be, and then compare that to what the turbine's going to produce. And if it exceeds that 4 decibels, which is sort of the state minimum requirement, we would need to understand that. So I think that's because of the project location, and I think that's a key step that would need to be done before we do sort of a big public meeting on it.
It seemed to hint that maybe the score then would become 5 decibels.
I would have to see exactly which part you were referring to.
Sure.
Sorry.
Okay. That's okay. Well, I can get that.
And I did just want to sort of mention, because I think that aside from the public outreach, the economic case of the project is, of course, important. Since we completed this report, I mean, the market for distributed wind has fundamentally changed. There's a couple reasons for that. I would probably say the biggest is because of solar. If you would have told me 2 or 3 years ago that you could install, a megawatt or 2 of solar for $2 a watt, I would have thought you were crazy. And yet that's where we are at the moment. So sort of mid-scale wind, that we've done at Holy Name and some of those other locations, now you can put in solar that can produce close to the same amount or more for the same price or less. So it's become it's been a harder business case to make on these medium-scale turbines that we're looking at in Auburn. Just to throw that out there. And as I mentioned, I mean, I used to come out to Massachusetts, once a month. We had an office here. Now we're almost 85% of our business is solar, and we're doing all our work in New York. So just to give you an idea of how much things have changed since we completed the report.
Matt, with the past winter, we noticed some problems with solar. Mm-hmm. And it was quite expensive to get snow
Right.
off of the collectors. And in fact, a lot of the contractors that seemed the only thing they knew was $1,000, please, or $2,000. And a lot of course, it wasn't generating any electricity.
Sure.
But I've always looked upon solar and wind as a marriage of a good couple.
Absolutely.
Wind produces when the solar is covered with snow.
That's true.
And that's generally the most productive months.
Yep.
For the wind. And while the solar isn't producing as much, and then you come to the summer and the wind doesn't produce as much, but the solar is producing at its maximum amount, which sounds to me like a very nice marriage.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely correct.
But that was one of the problems with the solar. Is, of course, it works during the day, but
Sure.
it doesn't work at night,
Sure,
whereas
sure.
wind turbines do.
Sure. Yep.
So I think in some areas they're thinking of working both as a marriage,
Yep.
so that you don't have that emptiness of no electrical production at night.
Absolutely. Yep. They can absolutely work great together. We've done a few projects, smaller scale projects that have involved wind and solar, but never sort of a larger scale one with both. So.
Thank you.
I guess the other fundamental changes have been, one is the Mass CEC. They have a Commonwealth wind program. There's not really a defined incentive level at this point. We have one other project that we're working on in Western Massachusetts that's kind of been on a similar slow development process. It's a little further along, but we're constantly engaging with the CEC. Haven't really got a lot of commitments as of yet on where funding's going to end up and everything. So that's been tricky. And then on the federal tax credits, which have been very important drivers of wind and most other energy industries, they have lapsed in the past year or two. They've actually been renewed and then gone away, and renewed and gone away. So what we had proposed here, you could do a third-party project. It wasn't what we thought was the best option, but it was an option. Without the ITC, the 30% tax credit in place, it'd be difficult to find a third-party investor that would want to become involved in a project. So, and we have no clue what's going to happen with federal energy policy going forward. So there's a lot of unknowns. So those sort of things have pretty much affected the wind market, and not only Massachusetts but around the country, specifically the distributed wind market. And along those lines, wind turbine availability, which used to be a problem, then wasn't a problem, is now a problem again. So we had, there were quite a number of mid-scale turbines, similar to the one that's at Holy Name, similar to the ones out in Hull. Those turbines aren't really readily available at this point. We had a relationship with a distributor of the Gamesa 850, which was the turbine that we recommended here, and they pulled out of that marketplace. Gamesa still makes them, but they don't have any formal, agreement or ability to sort of just order them off the shelf. It's really this was always the issue in the past, was the large manufacturers had them, they could make them, but they would only make them if you ordered 50 of them. So that's another sort of tricky issue with the medium scale turbines. Large scale wind turbines are available, but it wasn't really that scale of turbine wasn't really what we thought was the ideal technology for Auburn. So that's sort of where we stand. It's not, not trying to be a buzzkill or anything, but it's just sort of the reality of the marketplace at this moment is it's very difficult for wind, and we've had, a number of projects that were, very promising and fell by the wayside and did not proceed. So it's not atypical at this point.
Now, the economic forecasts that you put in here,
Yes.
are those still accurate?
So I did update it. There was I sent out a report, and I can resend it. It would have been a much shorter summary. It would have been a few months ago that sort of went through those economics. The capital costs have gone up again because of turbine availability. But I still, all that being said, if you can get a project, and if municipalities have the ability to get, potentially have the ability to get low interest loans, the project that we're working on in Western Massachusetts just got a clean renewable energy bond, which is has a 2.5% interest rate, and they're doing a 2 megawatt turbine project, but they are, that's helping them proceed. So those are potential options, financing options that are available. I know that municipal bond rates are probably a little higher, probably over 5% at this point. So, so the economic forecast in the original report is probably a little outdated.
In the one that I have in front of me?
Yes. Yep.
So what am I supposed to make a judgment on?
Well, I believe there was one, and I didn't bring. Maybe I did bring a copy of it. There was one that would have gone out. It was like a business plan update from a few months ago. So. So they didn't change significantly, but they're not exactly the same that was in that report. I mean, that report is a year and a half old, 2 years old. So.
Oh, I thought this was updated.
That's the original report. The business plan is what.
It's sort of the follow-up to that. Is the follow-up to the feasibility.
That's what SED is working on at the moment.
Yeah, it's
So there's no report on that?
It's this one.
Not yet.
It's this guy right here.
This one?
Yep. So really the biggest
Did
part
you
of
send this one to me?
I must have.
the biggest part of the business plan is less the report and more the, you know, major tasks. The public outreach task, I think, is probably the biggest one. So.
But these seem to be similar to the figures that are in here.
Similar, not
Very-
that, not
very
that,
close.
very close. Yes, not completely different. That is correct.
Yeah, very close.
Yep.
But one thing I noticed that you didn't do, and you had for your forecasts, and it concerned me quite a bit, is that you talked about some of the economic, in your economic analysis at 9.2 in the report, that it was going to increase a certain percentage each for the next 3 years. But you didn't take into consideration what National Grid did to us this in 2014 or 2015. Well, those weren't 2 or 3 or 4%
Sure.
increases. National Grid's claim, what was it, 37% they were claiming.
Yeah, and I do, and that
It
was
quite a bit larger than that. When I looked at my own electric bill
Yep.
from October to November,
Yep.
it wasn't 37%. It went up a lot more than that.
And so the rates that we typically use are, we try to be a little more conservative with them, just because those rates are based on 20 years of EIA from the Energy Information Administration for Massachusetts. So there's going to be lots of sort of peak years and peaks and valleys in that process. So we try to level that out, because there are going to be, not that I believe rates are going up, but I think, you know, the 2 years ago, that winter, when everyone's rates went up, you know, somewhere in the neighborhood of, I mean, I saw some double. You know, that was somewhat of an anomaly. You know, they've kind of gone back down. And so when we're doing our rates analysis, we try to keep it sort of, you know, not on the curve, but on the sort of the median line on the chart. So that's where a 2 to 3 to 4% increase every year is fairly typical in the Northeast. There might be years that are more, but over the long term, it's probably going to be, you know,
But
close
if
to
we
that
had the
range.
wind turbine up, we would have been paid that amount that National Grid was charging, right?
Sure. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
16.2
Yep.
something per
Yep.
kilowatt,
Yep.
which is way above what your estimate was on
Yes.
for several months.
Right. And again, there's going to be some
Seemed like
years.
half a year.
Right. And there are going to be some years where that rate goes down. I mean, it's just, you know, the nature of the market. There are days when it's up and there are days when it's down. So.
It seems more volatile now.
Sorry, what?
I don't
yes.
ever remember it being this volatile.
Yes, it's very. It is certainly very volatile, and I think, you know, that'll certainly keep happening. But we try to, just with the analysis, we kind of have to ignore those, you know, highs and lows, and try to stay in sort of the average range.
When I wrote my checks out, I wish I could have been
I
able
know.
to do it. Highs and lows and every other. I know I had a former selectman come up to me complaining that his electric bill was $500 one month.
Yeah, it's
I
quite
wasn't
amazing.
real happy about that.
And one of the things that I think is interesting with the town, at least my understanding, is the town is completely net metered, or completely net metered from solar projects. Is that?
We were we were signed into 2 projects, one in Rutland, and then another with a company called Solar City. And I recently gotten an update from Solar City that project is being held. I guess there's a legal issue that they weren't able to disclose, obviously.
Right.
But our contract with Solar City, it ends in October, and if the project is not able to, you know, basically if we're not receiving credits from the project by October, then
that's
the contract,
gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
then our agreement is nullified.
Okay.
And the person from Solar City also said if the town found another opportunity for a net metered credit agreement elsewhere, that they would work with us to cancel our agreement, because they don't believe it will. it's going to resolve.
Sure, sure.
Um,
Okay, good to know.
yeah. So we were in agreements. I think that account for about 90% of our energy use.
But how much are we actually getting?
At the moment, we're not getting anything.
We're not getting anything.
No, the Rutland project will be completed. Well, the agreements were set to begin this year. The credits,
Yeah.
and so the Rutland project is completed. They're waiting for their inspection from the utilities department,
Yeah.
and we should receive credits by July, starting in July.
For what percentage of the 100%?
So it was about 90%, and that's going to account for about 45% of the municipal.
So there's still 55% unused.
At this point
if
now.
Solar City doesn't come through.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, this is sort of news to me as a taxpayer, because from what I've been hearing, we've been getting credits for this right along. This is the first time it's been explained to me completely that we're not getting any money payback.
Right. Yeah, the town entered into a contract with Constellation Energy for, it was a 3-year contract that would sort of layer with the net meter credits to cover the town until those projects came online. So we have been paying, I think, about 10 cents per kilowatt hour, which is
Pretty good.
been a pretty
It's not
decent rate, especially compared to what happened over the winter. So the town, our municipal use was protected from that spike, and those will, that agreement with Constellation will end, and the credits will pick up.
Right.
But now we just found out that like I said, the Solar City project likely is not gonna pan through. So,
Wow.
yep,
Wow.
the town's
That's big news.
now seeking a new opportunity.
Well, it seems to me like they should owe us some money. I don't know. It's, wow. It's
Yeah.
a little shocking. I think the individual citizens right now can get it as low as I've seen contracts on the web for $855. And if you want to sign up for a year, you can get your electricity in your house for a little over 10 cents a kilowatt.
That's pretty great.
You can get that for 2-3 years, guaranteed, right now on the web. But there are all kinds of things, the ins and outs. The people on anyone listening at home and you're thinking of doing this, you want to be careful how many months you sign up for, because if you sign up now, like say you sign up for a 6-month program, and then your contract expires in the winter, that's when the prices are the highest.
Right.
So you might end up in a situation like National Grid hit us with last year at 16.2, or maybe 13.5 might be more realistic for the companies that are competing with each other on the open web. But certainly right now you can get it for a little over 10 cents a kilowatt hour. And if you sign the contract for a year, it then expires during this time period when usually you can get these contracts cheaper. But wow, so I thought those were already happening.
Producing credits and
Yeah, I thought the town was getting money off of this the whole time for over a year.
yeah.
And this comes to me as a shock.
Yeah, unfortunately, or I think the way that they work is in the development phase, the developer is essentially seeking the off-takers,
Yeah.
so that once the project goes online, the electricity already has.
And to do those projects, they need the off-taker to kind of get the financial close done. They can't just say, well, we're going to put this up and hope that they want signed contracts from people. So that's before they'll go, potentially even before they'll go through permitting. But they'll probably initiate interconnection. Interconnection is probably the biggest. There's a lot of projects coming online. There's lots of capacity issues. There's lots of upgrade issues. So I know that's a big factor that slowed down a lot of projects, including including some of ours as well. So.
Hey, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, not at all. So, aside from that, I think I did want to talk about the public outreach and sort of what form that takes. I assume similar to this, but maybe even a wider audience would be good to present these findings to. Just wonder what you guys' thoughts were on that.
Well, certainly if you go before the select board, you've got a wider audience.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But there are some people that don't have cable TV or have switched to direct TV, and I don't know if the cable is even on those.
It's not.
It's not. And there are other people that just get their news off the web, and they don't have the cable TV. So what percentage of the citizens that reaches, I don't really know.
Sure.
Maybe cable TV could tell us.
And I think, as long as
people come in the past, I'm sorry, and they've told us, well, we didn't know it was on cable.
Right.
Because we don't have cable.
Right. I just think if it's sort of publishing it, on the web, in the paper, in a few other places,
Right.
and say, hey, there's going to be a meeting where they're going to talk about the findings of this.
Right.
Something along those lines is sort of how we've handled it in the past. And I think if we can tie it together with, let's float a balloon at the site and show, what potentially this would look like, not what it would look like, but how tall it would be. I think that would be a sort of nice thing to add in. So.
And we can always ask the newspapers to do that. Rick?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is when all the questions that I have in are going to be answered, the ones that were being referred to Matt. But
I have that written down too to ask him.
the other part of it is this public outreach. And if you look at, and it's one of my questions, if you look at the CEC website, I mean, they're pretty specific. They want you going neighborhood canvassing, ongoing, all through this process, not just when it's all done. And certainly not to stick a balloon up for 2 hours and say that's what we did. And that idea of the balloon, this committee has talked about it 3 or 4 times, and the conversation has always been we want it up for a day or 2 or 3 so that people can actually see it. And it's particularly important because the pictures that were taken are nowhere near representative of what you're going to see when this thing is up. Now, as part of one of the packages I gave you, I showed you the houses on Linden Lane. When the leaves aren't on there, you can see the Met Tower. Now this turbine and that tower is right behind the house. When this turbine is up, it's 150 feet higher than that Met Tower. So, frankly, I think it's kind of insulting to the town to think that we're going to put a balloon up for 2 hours and the people are going to have an idea of what this thing is going to be. It's not right. And I think when Adam was talking to Matt way back in this process, the balloon was going to be a 2-balloon process. One was going to be at the height of the pole, and the other one's going to be the thing. And it was going to be up so that people can understand what this thing is. And I just don't see that happening.
And we could certainly have it up for longer than that. I mean, there's a limitation just based on how much helium it has or what the weather's like, but it could be up for a longer period or over a period of a few days.
Right.
There's certainly some options.
And that's what it should be. You mentioned 2 hours before. That isn't right. People need to see what this thing is. That balloon is going to be hanging right over the houses on Linden Lane, and people need to see that.
I don't think, are you all set?
Yes,
I don't think it was Adam that said it. It was me who said I wanted it up there longer.
absolutely.
And, well, thank you. And I think it should be in the morning for people before they go to work. Mm-hmm. And then after 5 p.m., it should be up for the people who are coming home at 5 p.m. because if they're off in Boston or something, they didn't get a chance to see it. So I would agree with you, Rick, that 2 hours seems to be too short a period of time.
Yep, that's no problem.
Great, so you come back and let Eric know how much time you can give us? Or was
Yeah.
another proposal of just 2 hours, which does seem to be short.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. No, that's fine. A lot of times when we do these, 2 hours is, it's announced publicly, but we also drive around and take pictures of it, and usually it only needs to be up 2 hours. But certainly I think longer is not an issue.
And Rick's second question, as we deal with it now, is as he was asking questions, and they were mainly of an engineering basis, Adam seemed to be writing them down. Remember that, Jack? And he was supposed to pass them on to you.
Okay.
And then we were hoping to get answers from you,
Okay.
from them. Do you have those questions?
I'm not. When would they have been sent?
Well,
Over the course of 5 meetings.
yeah, over the course of certainly over a year. I would think that last year that Adam was here.
I know that I know that I did answer a number of questions.
Would you check the records and see if Adam left any records of that?
I've gone through the files that I have, paper files, and I don't have access to that. I think I've mentioned that before.
So I can go back through and try to see if I can dig up those. I mean, I can
Please.
find all those emails.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I would
certain I can
appreciate
dig
that.
those up.
The citizen asks the questions. We're not engineers, we can't answer that. That's why we referred them to you.
Well, if I could,
Yes, sir.
there were some engineering questions. I mean, the report said there were no affected wetlands on site. There's wetlands all over the site. The access road crosses right through the wetlands. One of the other questions was, and I think you answered it tonight, it was obvious 2 years ago that Gamesa was backing out of the 850 kW market. And obviously that's what's come to fruition. But that's one of the questions that I asked 2 years ago. If you read their financial reports, once they sent the manufacturing of that to India, it just became a dead issue.
Well, and we had a distributor that we were working with that had sold. I think we had installed 2 of them. Actually, we installed 3 of them. They sold another 6 or 7. So they had very big plans to do it. And then, sort of, kind of the tax credit issue sort of weakened the demand, and their arrangement with Gamesa, fell out. And so this happened in the last 6 months or so.
And I don't, if I could, I don't mean any disrespect here, but that was, I've always thought the town has made a mistake in having a developer do a feasibility study, because that feasibility study was based around what you could sell at the time, and that's wrong. That's not the way a feasibility study should be done. It should be a neutral study, and that whole study is based around the 850 kW from Gamesa, and it was a mistake.
Well, I would just say there's not really other technologies that we recommend. And yes, we are a developer and installer. Our I guess our reasoning for that, or our justification for that, has always been, well, we know what's required to bring these projects from the initial phase to being constructed. And we also did the feasibility study at Holy Name. We're not beholden to any technology. We're beholden to what's going to be the best technology for the customer. There are mid-scale turbine options available. They weren't ones that we would recommend to our customers. Gamesa is, one of the top manufacturers in the world, and so that's one that we were, very happy with. And we have 3 functioning operational ones that are still backed by Gamesa's warranty and O&M. So they're still a very good turbine technology. We just don't have a good way of getting a hold of them. And again, I know everyone's very cynical about this, but we want to do what's best for our customers. We're not interested in selling them bad technologies, because that's bad for us. There are wind turbine projects that have generated a lot of noise and opposition, and none of those are our projects. We take a very particular, we're very particular about how we develop these projects, and trying to, minimize impacts as much as possible. So that's sort of I guess that's my take on it. Now, that's your opinion. That's
Sure.
That's
Yep.
fine. So
Appreciate that.
And I have a different opinion, respectfully, on that one, in that perhaps it's just the opposite way around, is that the facts and the siting and the acreage and your experience, and the fact that there are over 4,000 of those in the world, led all of the study from this study led to the Gamesa.
Yeah, and
And it may have led to others, but it, you know, when they look at all the facts, it leads only to certain wind turbines.
yeah,
The same as the Pawtucket Red Sox may come to Worcester, because there are only certain places they can go.
Yep.
And the facts will determine the few choices that you have. There aren't a lot of manufacturers of 850s around. They're mainly industrial ones, and they want to sell you 50 of them.
yeah. And so I think a lot of times you get a feasibility study, and we don't need to get into this, but you get a lot of options, and you get so many options that you don't know what the best option is. So I think, you know, we try to say, okay, well, we've done this, we've been doing this for, you know, 14 years. This is what we think is the best option for you. There are other options, and you know, we can certainly explore them, but that's sort of our mindset when we do these studies. So.
And to a certain degree, I agree with Rick also in this. I wish you would give it a second option.
Okay.
I wish.
And that's something that, you know, that is something that we can, you know, currently the Gamesa is not the first option anymore.
Both of
so.
those approaches.
Yeah.
The facts leading to the Gamesa, and Gamesa being, you know, something that you want to sell. Okay, are there any other comments from the audience on that? From that? No? Okay. I'll let you continue.
So that was pretty much the extent. I mean, again, the business planning is sort of a follow-up to the feasibility study. So we sort of want to revisit a lot of those key aspects, the financials, the CREBs, which is sort of a new, the Clean Renewable Energy Bonds, which I kind of want to go back and revisit those figures, because at the time they had expired and they were gone. They're now available again. I guess it would be good to know exactly, you know, for you guys to know what the exact process would be to you know, secure those funds. So that's something I'd like to explore, and just provide some findings on as well. So
I was reading this past month that they're building legislation right now on these topics. That's in the process of happening in Boston right now in committee or something, and it sounded very positive towards both wind and solar.
And the CEC has become re-engaged. We had a
That was
very
the
good
theme of the article.
Yeah, we had a very good call with them in the last couple months. You know, sort of about, you know, how do we restart some of these projects that fell off in the last couple years. So I think there's some more commitment or some new energy behind it. So hopefully that will you know, be a good sign of things to come. So.
Okay, any other tests? The sound test would go in with the balloon test. And you're going to expand on the balloon test, and you're going to look for Rick's questions.
Yes, I will look for Rick's
answers
questions.
to his
Yep,
questions.
absolutely.
Whatever you have.
Yep.
All right. I'll let you continue with your presentation.
That's pretty much everything that I had. I'm happy to answer any additional questions, but you know, like I said, I really think once we can get that acoustic study done, that will, you know, that will really help us give a very accurate portrayal of the project, because I think that's probably everyone's main concern is, you know, what the potential sound effects.
Is that a handout on your presentation today?
Yes. Yes.
Were we not able to get it linked to the TV? Is that?
I just I tried to hook it up and I uploaded it, and it did not upload correctly onto my USB. So I can send it out to everybody when I get back. So.
That'd be great. Thanks. So you could keep the hard copy, and I'll email
Yes.
an electronic copy to the group when I get it.
And if you can give me a copy on the CD or something, I appreciate that. Okay, so questions on the on his presentation or the speech?
Seems to me that, you know, from we started at this day one, awfully optimistic. The payoffs were great. I mean, I'm not saying pie in the sky, but it just seems to me that over a period of years, things have changed, and not so much in our favor. I mean, the tax credits are gone away. That's, you know, that's not a good thing. Nobody's making these turbines anymore. That that's not a good thing either. I mean, it just seems to me that, I mean, snowball's kind of rolling down a hill now, and it's rolling fast. I'm just afraid we're gonna get run over, and it just, I mean, I'm not optimistic based on that report. I mean, you know, I was in favor of everything from the beginning, but it just seems now that, you know, everybody's putting up the solar pin. I mean, they were here all the time in Massachusetts for wind turbines. Nobody's doing them anymore. I mean, and the, you know, the rates now that you get with the alternative energy and the everybody getting in cheaper, you're not getting the big rates, you're not getting the payback, the municipal bond rates now, it's going to take longer to get your payoff. Doesn't sound good to me.
And I would just,
Yeah, I mean, you can try to convince me, but I mean, you know, I mean, not making it. I mean, my first car I bought was an Oldsmobile, and I mean, I liked it. And I bought some more. You know, I mean, I could probably find one now, new. You know, if I looked around, but I mean, it's going to break down. I'm not going to be able to get any. I'm not parts for it. I mean, nobody's making these turbines anymore, and you know, we'd like to sell you this that can do this, this, and this, but nobody you know, I mean, I like to buy you I like to get a car that has this, 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 and this, but nobody makes one like that. I don't know. It just, you know, it doesn't sound optimistic to me. And I'm usually a fairly optimistic kind of person.
I would just say there's no risk in continuing down the path of the business plan, you know, of doing the study and just, I mean, you've already sort of been approved funding to do it. You can just, you know, do it, and if at the end of it, that's the end of it, and or maybe, you know, 3 or 4 years down the road, that's all. You know, I'm just saying there's not necessarily any risk to continue through the contract. But from there, it's, you know, that's up to the town to decide what they want to do, whether this is something they're ready to do.
Right, we've done the wind study. There's adequate wind there. Could produce money over its lifetime. You know the market better than any of us, but the fact that your company is now going more into solar than wind turbines. When was the last wind turbine put up in Massachusetts or the geographic region?
The last one in Massachusetts.
I know there's a whole group that fights against them, so on the web. So
last one that we did one in Lynn last winter. That would have been probably, that's the last one that we did, and that could have been the last one that went up, sort of that scale that went up. So
right.
that was an RRB, like the 600, like the one at Holy Name. So.
Oh, I didn't think those were available anymore.
Those ones are, and I haven't actually talked with them in a couple months, but they are still available. They're expensive. There's the demand. There's a demand for them in India and other parts of Asia, but less so here at the moment. So.
I still think I kind of agree with Jack that it doesn't look as good as it did a couple of years ago. I mean, we still have a questionable site. There was a lot of questions in that. Rick asked a lot of questions that haven't been answered as far as the site being. That's still questionable, I think. You know, and Home Depot. We were supposed to we get a letter from Home Depot or something a few years ago. We asked them for that to see if they would be partners.
That was a big piece of that as well.
It hasn't been answered yet. And then another thing that surprised me is we don't even have solar zoning law yet in this town. And if we'd started we'd started a solar project 5 years ago, we'd be making electricity out there now. Instead of going down this road with a wind turbine. But that's
you know, we
should refocus.
We've had the same conversation at our company. You know, it's just again, it's been a fundamental change in the market that I don't think any of us.
And I worked on a lot of solar projects, and that could be going on, and somebody's not. in somebody's backyard, and they're not visible, so people don't object to them as much as they do wind turbines. So I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff there that you know, we wouldn't have to be dealing with.
Wayne?
Just a couple of things. I haven't gone to that many meetings about the turbines, but the thing is the way the speakers are speaking, how things seem coming to this meeting tonight, how a lot of issues and stuff still occur. And the thing got me is, this thing has been dragged out for years and years and years. And why is that? And why, I mean, when we had the benefit of these tax things and everything else, and now they're all falling off, why haven't we moved sooner? And I mean, I like the idea of the turbines, but I come to the meeting tonight and I listen to, I'm not sure whether you're an engineer or whatever you are, tonight, and it just seems like even the engineer isn't where we should be. It's just, there's so many questions, and the balloon thing, like Rick and Bob had said, I mean, 2 hours, come on. You need days. You need more publicity through the public channels and getting out to the people in the town to let them know what's going on. You need a board of selectmen to step up and get with the program one way or the other. But I mean, to keep dragging your feet and not getting a solid answer what to do, we're losing more and more and more as time goes on. You had great benefits, what, 5, 6 years ago? And now they're all dwindling away. So I mean, if we're gonna do this project, people need to step up to the plate. And if they know the people that are dragging their feet, go to them and tell them, stop dragging your feet. This is a benefit for the town if it works out. If it's not, it's not. But don't just keep dragging people here every time you people do your work as far as the committee goes and everything, but then it goes elsewhere and it doesn't go anywhere. You need everybody to work together on this program, and I don't see that happening. I'm sorry, but that's my feelings. And after hearing tonight, I'm even a lot more warier than I was prior to. I still think it's a good idea, but I think it's falling by the wayside. I think it is a snowball going down the hill. And if you don't stop that snowball, the town is not going to benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. And we sit in an advisory committee. We give advice, and the select board and town manager makes the decisions. So we give our advice, and that's where it goes. We take the aggregation program. I started that 3 years ago, and finally it's going through. But it seems that was even slow. So government seems to move slowly. A lot of things came out tonight that were kind of a surprise. The surprise that we aren't getting any benefits off the solar yet was a surprise to me. I thought that was money in the coffers every month, and it's not. It's not happening yet. The contracts are there. The wind turbine, there's enough wind there. That's part of the study has been done. If the town doesn't want to get behind it politically, and the people who make the decisions, then it's there for another group 3, 4, 5 years from now. Unless something happens there, I think at some point you'll have something there. Now, there's no reason why solar and wind are a good marriage. There's no question of mine, but whether or not the will is here in Auburn is another question. I feel like we've accomplished what we set out to do, to prove that there was enough wind there. And then the people who make the decisions will decide with the residents whether they want to take the benefits from a wind turbine. If they don't, it's okay. If they do, that's, I think, a better choice. You know what my motivation is, Wayne. I feel the more alternative methods of developing energy, the fewer soldiers we're going to send to the Middle East for oil. I've felt that for a long time now, and I don't see us fighting for oil and other things when we can have alternative energy in the United States. And if every town did a little bit in the bucket, pretty soon you'd have enough that we would be independent. And I don't know if we can depend on fracking or what the side effects of that are going to be. Yes, Wayne?
I just believe there's been too much dragging of the feet.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying your committee.
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
totally
feel-
sure where
I'm
it's
not
coming
taking-
from.
I'm
but I
not
think
taking it that way.
There's other people, and I am saying partly the selectmen should step up to plate and work with this committee and the town manager. Don't keep prolonging it, because you're gonna end up losing this whole project because of people dragging their feet. It's gone on for 5, 6 years. If my years are wrong, I'm sorry. That's where I'm averaging it.
Yep.
But, and then you're talking about the engineers talking another 2, 3 years to get everything going, rolling where it should be. But if you don't get these answers that you need, what are you gonna do? Drag it out for another 10 years? And then who knows where it's gonna be? It may be better, it may be worse. We don't know, but you can't just keep dragging their feet. That's what I'm trying to get across. Thank you.
And I agree with you. Any other comments from the audience? Yes, Rick?
Yeah. You know, this thing has dragged out for a long time, but it has because you can't make the numbers work. Because it's not based on economics, it's based on subsidies. And the subsidies are to feed this thing and get it going, but they don't stay. The rules that we had 2 years ago are not the rules we have now. They're not the rules you're going to have 2 years from now. So you're trying to make this thing work when it doesn't. And you know, if you read some of the deals that these towns get into to make these things work, and the state says, well, you can sell the RECs for this amount of money, and no, well, we're going to let you sell them for a little more so you can make that. It's all smoke and mirrors. Until they develop batteries that can store this electricity that's made intermittently, it doesn't work without subsidies. It just doesn't. And I'm sure when you started this 2, 3, or 4 years ago, 5 years, 62 months, I think, the numbers with the subsidies work, but they don't. And you can't depend on them. In my mind, if this thing becomes obvious that we don't want to do it, thank God we didn't sign something and get into the middle of it like other towns have, and have this thing up and be pouring money into it. So, you know, Wayne's right, it does drag out, but it drags out because the numbers don't work. And the sooner you admit that, the better off you are. in my
Wayne.
opinion.
I agree with Rick to a point. But I mean, the numbers were there way back 5, 6 years ago. And the thing was, his feet were being dragged. It wasn't because of the numbers. It's because committees couldn't get to work together to make it either happen or not happen. Thank you.
So my question goes back to our expert in this field, this company works and did this for years and still does. If the wind turbine was up now, would it be paying for itself?
Yes.
So the numbers would work.
Yes.
I want that on the record too. If it were up. And it would be paying for the maintenance costs, the loan.
And we have, you know, a dozen projects across the state that
that are proving that.
are proving that point. Yep.
Thank you very much. It's just a matter of, you know, whether or not Auburn wants it politically, you know. We're only an advisory committee. And that's it. We've passed the wind test, got all these studies. If politically you don't want it, then you have all the studies there. And you move on to something else. Any other comments or questions?
It's a lot like the Olympic, I mean, we don't have a mayor or a governor, you know, push it, I mean, the only one these meetings that we have once a month, once every 2 months, you got 4 people in town, you know, pushing it at the meeting, but I mean, you walk out, stand at the post office on Saturday morning and talk to the first 10 people in there, ask them, what do you know about the wind turbine project in Auburn? And I'm guessing out of 10, if you got one who would have, you know, geez, you know, maybe I heard a little something about, I would think that would be a lot. I mean, I don't think anybody knows the goods, the bads, the ugly. It just, you know, there's no way of getting out pushing the project. So I mean, you know, if it's good, no one's ever gonna find out. I mean, if it's bad, people will find out soon enough. But if it's good, you know, there's nobody there driving the bus. I mean, what you can do about that, I have no idea. I mean, you like you say, we're just an advisory committee, but I mean,
Right.
I mean, if they pushed us a couple of times at the selectmen's meeting years ago, maybe it would have taken off. And like Matt said, I mean, if the turbine was up now, it would be making, you know, it would be making money for the town. If it's up in another, it's not up now, but it's up in another 5 years, I'm guessing it may make money, but not what it would have been made if, you know, what those are gonna make 5 years from now are less than what they're making today. And I mean, God knows how many years ago we started this project. I mean, if we had it up and running now, maybe we'd be making something.
It'd be paid for.
Yeah.
It'd be generating
Yeah.
money. Yes, Rick.
Last comment. You know, the comment that yes, we would be making money now, well, that's a comment that we can make, and we can all listen to that and say, well, geez, we would be making money. But that's based on the figures that are in the feasibility study. The feasibility study's got a lot of questions, as Dave said, about that site. And the cost to build on that site could be astronomical. That's going to affect what we're doing. So we may not be making money if we had built it 3 years ago. I'm not saying we wouldn't have, but we may not have been. You go take it, you study a little bit about Falmouth. Same situation. It's on top of a hill. The selling point was the things on top of the hill, all the houses are on the bottom, it's not going to make noise. Falmouth is under court order right now that they can't run more than 12 hours a day. And because of that, they're losing their shirt. Now the state, the CEC, has just come in 6 months ago and gave them another $1.5 million to try to get their maintenance fund up so they can operate this thing. So, you know, I don't think it's right for the comment to be out there that, oh, geez, if we'd have just done it 3 years ago, we'd be rolling money now. That's far from proven, if you ask me. And I think when you answer a lot of these questions that we've asked about the site, maybe it would be obvious that we wouldn't be making money.
Well, thank you for your comments, but, and I'll just go back. His opinion is different. And that's what we're dealing with right now, is with opinions. But you said there are 6 or 7 other
There are
sites.
there are a bunch of projects in Massachusetts that are up that no one talks about because they're doing fine.
And they're doing fine.
Yep.
And
Holy Name, for example, town of Williamstone, it's another 600 kilowatt. We have plenty of 100 kilowatt turbines. There's a few projects, Falmouth, Kingston, that there were some siting issues, maybe some technology issues, and those are sort of the causes of, you know, one of the main causes of the delays. Basically, the CEC was getting a lot of pressure to deal with these issues and really held up any, you know, basically there was no program for a period of time and then very little response from the CEC. So that was probably the biggest delay that we had to deal with.
but let's say we don't have the credits from before, we have just what exists now. Would it still work and make money?
Without the incentive?
Right.
Yes. I mean, it would
Just
would
takes
certainly
long,
not.
a little longer to pay it off, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have our landlord at our office. He put up this same turbine a couple years ago, and he had another German turbine he put up 10 years ago. And it's not always the best thing, but he said even if it just doesn't start paying itself off until year 19 and day 1, and it stopped working, I still made money over the long term. So it's how you perceive, how you're saving money. I mean, there's lots of investments that communities make and individuals make and things. Not everything pays itself off like a wind turbine project or a solar project does. So it's I guess more of a mindset than anything else. But yeah, I mean, we have lots of very, very successful projects with happy customers that are working great and will continue operating and provide them a lot of savings for their lifetime.
And are you going to do any updates on this report so it's more accurate now on the economic pass?
I can, yeah. That
the
was
economic
the
pass
purpose
is
of
what
that.
I'm particularly interested in.
Yeah, that was the purpose of that summary, but I can certainly add it into the report and just update it through there. That's fine.
I appreciate that. 'Cause I was under the impression this was an updated report, but as I read it, it's not. Okay. Are there any other comments from the audience? Okay. Any other comments from the committee? Matt?
No, thanks for having me. And
Want to give us a recap of what you're going to be working on? Just
yeah. So the first thing will just be getting the acoustic study lined up, and then we'll want to present some dates to you guys that we can have a public outreach meeting,
okay.
And present the findings of the acoustic report, and also put up the balloon for. We'll figure out what the. I like sort of the idea of the morning, evening, and maybe over a couple days, something along those lines. I'll have to talk with my guys about what the best way to do that is, but we'll come up with a plan for that as well.
That would be great because it takes into consideration work schedule.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
And through the chair, for clarification, this will be in the fall is the time frame for these?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one more question as
Yes,
far
Dave.
as finance. What percentage of our financing that we got, the grants, have we used up? I mean, are we getting
I think you've
close?
used. I mean, so for the feasibility was 65, and then the business planning's 15, and then the acoustic study, which is how much it costs, is another 15. So I'd say there's, give or take, $30,000.
Isn't the acoustic study paid for by the state?
Yes, this is all paid for by the
Yeah,
state.
but the grant was $85,000.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's correct.
But the acoustic study is another
Yes,
$15,000.
that's correct. Yep.
The balloon test is out of the grant.
Yes.
Does that clarify it better?
Yeah,
And it's all paid for.
Yeah.
No tax dollars.
it's not costing the citizens, taxpayers anything.
No tax dollars. No tax dollars. Great. Anything else to add? No, and then I'll entertain them. Well, we don't have quorum, so we can adjourn, I believe. Any objections to this?
No.
Any other comments? Thank you all for coming. Appreciate all of your comments. Thank you.